It has been a whirlwind, that's for sure.
Yeah, it really has, huh?
No. Yeah, a lot going on personally, and this whole thing is just, you know, the case got really, really busy.
Right.
So let me see
In
if I
both
can.
cases, or effectively you're fighting both cases at the same time, like.
Oh, what the Gomez case, or just yeah, Preston and
And
Husu.
Husu. Mm.
Yeah, we took the court up on what we were starting to see was they really wanted one set of written documents.
Right, right.
They understood the differences between the two cases, of course, but um, and I actually thought it helped everyone if we had made our point that Sydney was different,
Yeah,
and bringing them together and filing one set of pleadings made sense. So
yeah. Fair enough.
and especially with discovery. Um, so
And Huso fundamentally has a difference in that, um, they are scheduling throughout the number ranges, or they've moved, at least because they've allowed Suva to take those cases, right? So thank God for Suva.
oh,
And I mean, that's been awesome. But so that's sort of fundamentally different. Whereas in Preston, a lot of your cases, particularly with high case numbers, are going to be struggling against, what the government say is the order with case number order, the way the AVQ is being ordered. They wouldn't, before there's a decision from a judge, they wouldn't take one of your plaintiffs and sort of jump them to the front of the queue, right? Or do you think that they
I,
might?
I don't know, and I don't want to ever say that when someone gets an interview, it's something that we did. I did, however, there is a bit of let's back up a second, because this is maybe something that I now know that I didn't know. So like posts don't see the number. When they ask, when they go to KCC, they say, hey, we have 40 spots.
Right.
It's KCC's responsibility to pick and choose, right?
Yes. Right.
So like the post, so like Johannesburg is not gonna, if they take a 55K for March, they're gonna say okay, because they don't care, right?
No. They're just giving the cases KCC sending.
And so we saw in our own case, like with our own plaintiffs, we had a situation where we had some Johannesburg plaintiffs, who had a high number who was scheduled, and we had one that was at a low number that hadn't been scheduled, and it was confusing and frustrating. And I think what had happened was, and this goes back to kind of this new coding system that we all are chatting about, which is it really had been about who was in that queue or AV, right? Who was ready. And I think to explain it without going into like conspiracy theories, I think that 55K was just in the queue and they hadn't processed lower numbers at that point. And so it may have been that 55K was next up.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, so the AVQ is only ordered within case number when the cases are in the AVQ. But before that, you've got RV, you've got DocC, DocQ, and all of those cases. There must be some trigger that says put those cases into AV. But unless KCC pull that trigger, a case can be receiving a letter that says your DS260 is processed, but they're not being moved into AV because KCC moves it into AV, and so they could be saying, look, this embassy is full. What's the point of us adding more AV cases? We've got 450 cases in the queue. They're only taking 30 cases a month. Why are we going to spend our time on processing more DS260s or processing more cases or even putting them into the AV queue on that embassy? We would rather spend our time on other embassies.
Yeah.
Because frankly, whether we like the pilot program or not, it's achieved its goal. They're not focusing on individual embassies. They're just saying, look, we're going to use the capacity wherever the capacity is. And by doing that, they're actually going to get close to 50,000. right? I think we
Yeah.
both agree on that, right? And
Yeah.
so, in a sense, they've achieved their goal because they don't care where they come from. They care about so the cutoffs and that sort of thing, but they don't care about they don't. I mean, I guess it's wrong to say they don't care, but I think what I'm sensing from comments that you've made is they are unable to influence what Cairo does. For example, they are KCC feels powerless to tell Cairo what to do, or Sydney, or
100%.
whatever else. Right?
They 100% KCC is not going to get in that game. The only thing they'll do is they'll be responsive to Post. If Post asks them for information, they'll give it.
Yeah.
Are they going to say, hey, Cairo, you should probably take some of these applicants. You're really turning a blind eye. Have you seen what your friends are doing in Casablanca? No, they're not doing it. KCC, here's what I now know. KCC doesn't stop working because their job is to work. And if there's 260s to be done, they'll do them. And I think they're like government, just like perfect government servants. They're insensitive because they don't understand the personal reality. They don't get it.
They don't get into the personal.
Yeah, they don't get into that.
It's not personal. It's just a case number.
They see a form. Like they, and again, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect because it's government work, right? So when they were doing, like last May, and they were caught up or not caught up, they were far behind, and they said, we're just going to pull these first in, first out, meaning if you file the 260 in May, maybe you got out early, and then they had to switch it. Okay, and then they started doing it by CNs because I think they realized, oh boy, we're never going to schedule what the regulations require us to, which is by rank order number, right? So they did a couple things. They did the pilot program, which they're very proud of. Okay, and then they did the, then they switched the order of processing from first in, first out to number, and that doesn't mean by regional number. It means by like integer, by number. Like if they saw a low number, they would just do it and allocate it to a contractor. And that was it. And you know what? I mean, does it make sense? Probably not, I think the reality though is this, like, and again, living in the system, which I have, I've like lived, and I know you live in it for years, but for me, I am so in deep to the system. This year we knew something was different. We didn't know what it was, and we now know that what the plan was worldwide was this. It said, listen, we want to be out of the tier game, the prioritization game in DC. Posts, go for it. Take the ball, run with it. We actually think you should do some immediate relatives. Hey, we'd really like it if you did some non-immigrant visas. And, we do have 55,000 diversity visas that we can spit out too. But you know what, Chiefs? You go take the ball. You do whatever you want. So, like, if Sydney didn't want to do anything, that's cool with DC. And if Cairo wanted to just do all non-immigrant visas like it appears that they are doing, that's fine too.
Right.
And that is the issue. Right. That's really the issue in my case. I hate to call it my case. That's rude. It's actually my client's case. That's the issue. Is that acceptable? Because it leads to these ridiculously arbitrary results.
Yeah. I think that's true to an extent. It's a bit disingenuous on their part to say that they totally left it to the chiefs in the individual embassies and that it's not their fault, because they had just demonstrated how a tiered system would work in their opinion, right? There was no law supporting that, but they had this list, and the tiered system put in DV at number 4. They then said, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't be saying there's a T system centrally from Washington, as you say. So go ahead, Chiefs. Here's the tier system we did have, and this is the bit I would add to your statement, right? Yeah. But it's up to you, right? Yeah. You make up your own minds. So this is what we thought, but you make up your own minds. That, frankly, is bullshit. I mean,
it's a little bit like telling my son, like, hey, we can watch the baseball game later, but but you should probably do your homework, right? And hint, 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 hint,
Yeah.
right? They're nudging them, I think, because
Exactly.
they structure. We're talking about this cable that came out in November. I mean, they structure it to say, hey, we really want to get back to non-immigrant visas, and we really want to do immigrant visas, immediate relative and adoption K-1 visas too. And yeah, we have this policy that to do 55,000 diversity visas. Go get it. That being said, and again, it can't be one-sided, and I think some of my clients get really frustrated recently because that being said, when we sat here in February and they were below 2,000 or even 1,500 issued and I think 3,000 scheduled, and we look at where we are in May 20th, do I have to change my game? Of course I do. I mean, they took the ball and they actually did run with it at some post, right? I mean, and that's, people hate that reality, but if I just sit there and ignore it, or anyone does, it's going to be really tough. I do think they have violated, the APA, the Administrative Procedure Act, in a couple ways. I do think that our clients have claims for relief. At the same time, many clients are getting scheduled where posts are working.
Yeah, exactly. Who's who? You've got a high percentage of the cases now are already scheduled within your plaintiffs there, right? So
yeah, I think we're at, I'm looking at it actually, we're at about 39 out of it was 113, then it went to 112, so about 39 cases. And then in Preston, because the SUVA option opened, I think I have only 7 out of 23 left.
Right.
Because
right. Exactly.
I think you and I both talk, it's like they were like, it's really expensive to get to SUVA. And I was like, I know it is. And it really sucks. And I feel really bad that I couldn't get it done in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But I mean, this, believe me, it's funny because I use my Husu plaintiffs kind of, I'm like, listen, if do you know, this is unheard of how you'd have like an open embassy, like that you can transfer and they schedule the same day and they guarantee. Exactly. I'm like, this is unheard of.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. No, I mean, and that's highly unusual. And that's clearly, frankly, the lawsuit for those down under has really benefited lots of people, because I think SUVA have taken something like 200 cases or something. I mean, it's been amazing what they've done. Thank goodness for them. I actually had someone told me there's a slightly objectionable character in one of the forums. You may have read his posts sometimes. But he apparently he said something or other to the SUVA embassy and about what I had said in one of my videos, maybe with a chat with you or not, I don't know. And so the SUVA embassy said, "Oh, can you give us the link for that video so we can watch and see what's being said?" It's like, hey, really?
I'll tell you, weird. God bless them. I mean, because not only that, I mean, it's not only that they're doing it, but they're fitting in the medicals. Yeah. And they're being flexible, and then they're issuing, right? Because that's half the, you have to get the interview and then you have to get issued too. And we're lucky that we have our plaintiffs who've gone and been interviewed, have got their visas, and they're on their way to the United States. And like, I mean, that's why we're in this game. And
you touched on a important point there. I think people don't understand. An embassy could say, in some small country, they could say, hey, we could do 300 interviews this month. But that would be for nothing if the physicians can't handle those medicals. And so actually the capacity is the capacity of the embassy and the physicians that are taking that. So there are some countries where there's literally only one physician. So there is a limit to what that physician will take, and so there's no way around it.
Well, and
the physicians are hour-long medical paperwork and everything else, whereas the DV interview is 5 minutes, right? So the time is spent on the real constriction is on the medical.
Yeah, but it's like, and again, as great as SUVA has been, when I look at the Sydney situation and having just, I know what has gone on. They transferred staff from Sydney to Melbourne 3 times.
Right.
Okay. And they've reduced their backlog for immigrant visas, right? Over by like close to 70 to 80% at this point, right?
Wow.
And they took like, if they took 3 DVs, I think they put like, or 4, they put half of them in AP, right?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
And admittedly, I've had this conversation with the particular people, and I looked and I said, well, does that make sense that you wouldn't, if you transfer? I mean, we have people who are dying to go. Like, why wouldn't you just take, like, because you don't have that many, right?
Right.
You're gonna do 0 DV. And I said, hold on, full stop. I mean, I think it's not a secret that there's a deadline, right? I think at this point, everyone knows there's a deadline. I said, so was there a plan? And I'm trying to be friendly about, I'm like, was there a plan? Like, I'm just trying to understand, because you have these people, they win, right? And then their reaction is always, well, it's not guaranteed that you get a visa. I understand that. Okay. It's not guaranteed. Let's go for it. But you make them go through the 260, they submit their documents. If you're going to say we're not opening the building, go away, say it.
Right, exactly.
If you tell us you're going to open in September, well, that's not helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
But at least people would know, and they could, but this constant non-communication is actually worse, I think. If you're not going to open until September, fine, tell us. Then everybody knows they got to get on a plane to Suva or whatever.
Yeah, and let me just say, I don't know that it's September. I mean, what we know, I think, is that it's late summer, and or there could be, because they have reduced the backlog in Sydney. If they were to transfer people to Melbourne, maybe they would sprinkle in some of those diversity visa
in August or
something. And I'll tell you another thing that Suva has done, and again, they probably win Consulate of the Year award, maybe. By taking so many, they will allow those with higher numbers to have that shot, should Sydney or Melbourne. So it's a win-win. I think, again, that's one where we can say there was positive change. But I'm gonna get yelled at if we don't talk about some of those on the bad list who just have not responded. They just will not. They won't do it.
No.
I mean, Cairo, Addis, Accra.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so painful.
I
guess
they seem to be entirely free to continue that bad behavior. Right. And KCC is obviously not going to stop them.
No. KCC. I mean, listen, if people are looking for Superman to ride in, it's not flying from Kentucky. That's not happening. Like, it would have to come from the VO, like, or the visa office. But they're not going to do it. They're never. And I kind of said, what about like war breaks out, and we've seen that. Like, how does that process work? Where there is someone who's telling posts like you have to switch these cases or prioritize. Like, how does that happen? And I didn't really get very far there, but I think this, like, there's nothing we can do, and then they do something and you're like, well, see, you did do something. I mean, you moved everyone from Kabul and Afghanistan, and they always have an excuse, and they're very smart people, and but I really do think they've turned a blind eye to those in some specific consulates. I mean, I cannot wrap my head around what happened in Egypt. I really can't.
Yeah, me too. Very disappointing.
Yeah.
Sudan as well. Okay, let's take a couple of questions, perhaps. I know you've got a hard stop at 3:45, right? So
we do.
So let's just take a couple of questions. Interesting question here. I can anticipate your answer, but go ahead and answer this one. The question is that there a possibility of taking the argument in 2020 cases and 2021 to the Supreme Court?
I think the government will. I think the government will take that up. I can't speak for those in our side if we were to not prevail. I think the government will, though. Yeah, I do.
Wow, if it went there, I'm getting on a plane just to watch.
Yeah, and I got to be honest. I mean, I don't want to tip my hand, but I think you got to be careful what you wish for there. I don't know. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
Just people think like the makeup of the court will determine what goes on. I'm not so sure that this isn't about judicial authority. And
but to be clear, the Supreme Court takes up a tiny percentage of the cases that they are asked to get involved with. So it's even if there's an appeal, even if it goes beyond, it doesn't mean that the Supreme Court will take the cases. It's up to them.
No.
Okay. I'm looking for sort of legal information cases here. Well, let's see if there's some. I'd rather take questions just for the people watching. I'd rather take questions for Jesse than general ones for myself in this thing. I can do another live in the next couple of days. So, okay. So you're one of the winners. Subscribe to the Good Luck case. What's your opinion about the cases, and is there any hope of waiting? I think you mean of winning. Case number AS 21,000. So Good Luck was Curtis's huge case, right? And he's got about a third of the visas set aside for later issuance. So there is, on the face of it, there's risk for the winners that are still waiting because there's not enough reserved visas. I know in the impact team have argued to extend the number of visas set aside, but I'm not quite sure how that works really. But anyway, that's their cross appeal. Speaking of appeals and legal action, I saw Curtis is trying to get access to your deposition information from last week, right? Did you see that?
Yeah, he hasn't probably. I mean, I can tell you, like, the court issued a protective order yesterday, so I can't really release any of it. He can do it. He sees fit. But I am actually bound, and our clients are going to be bound by the protective order. And listen, that's the court's decision. That's no problem for me. I mean, it's the deposition is for purposes of our case for evidence. For our plaintiffs, it really wasn't meant to like be a tell-all Lifetime movie type of thing, right? So I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me, really. And again, I think, why would a judge order a protective order? I mean, I think there is. Yeah, why? I think people get heated, and people can potentially say things or release people's names and scare employees and scare workers, and and I can understand. I can understand that. I think there is maybe a duty to make sure that this doesn't go too far, right, and become like violent towards people, and protection of information. It's a high burden to do it, but the judge saw fit to do it, and that's fine.
Interesting.
I mean, one of the things that I've always done, I mean, one of the things I actually want to protect my clients all the time. For me, I've always operated that way. I don't like to release my pleadings. I don't like to do that because the privacy of our plaintiffs is important. They have children, they have families, and if their address is out there, and I'm responsible for that, and something happens, that's not good. So I always want to be sure to take it very carefully with information. And again, for purposes of a lawsuit, that when you're talking about an individual lawsuit, it's really about your relationship with your clients. And you owe them the duty. It's not to the world. It's to it's to those people. So
there is a bit of privacy, and there should be for everyone involved. I was always quite surprised, actually, back in the Gomez days and the 2021 lawsuits as well. I did some explanations which were presented in the court documents, And I did a full thing, and I put my real name on there. My real name is not Simon Britton; it's Simon, but Britton is not my last name. And I was surprised when Curtis released my full affidavit with with my real name and real home address on it. I didn't realize that was even a thing that he was going to do, but we've since seen Curtis is very transparent, shall we say, in the way that he operates. He likes to put everything out there.
Yeah, and listen, there's nothing, I'm not sitting here, I don't want to be critical of how anyone does their own business, and that's fine. I just, I don't know. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I just think there's a different way to do it,
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So about the 2020 and 2021 cases, we just repeat, the appeals are going. There's no real news. There won't be until September, right?
No, briefing's wrapping up, and I don't even think September is really September may be when we get to argue the case, meaning we'll go before the court, and then they have to write their decision, which is going to take some time.
Right.
Yeah.
So September, October, even before we know anything. So really, that's just the same answer for all the 2021 and 2020 cases. We're just going to have to wait.
Yeah.
And obviously, that means that without a doubt, that means that if we are successful in the appeals, the time will have to be extended. This is an interesting question. Do you know how many of your plaintiffs have not had their DS-260s processed? You know the status on each of them, right?
I think there's about 7%.
Okay. Wow, interesting.
Yeah. So there's not too many, but yeah, okay. I know that information. I mean, one of the things that's great about our clients is in having a little community that we talk all, like, too much probably, but we have some great talented clients who can compile data for our family members. We call them our family members, and really so I have all these stats that I wouldn't otherwise. I can't do that stuff, right? But yeah, so it's like 7% today. It may be it's certainly going down, and I can tell you, I know they're accelerating. I know they want to do processing. I mean, that's
okay, so they're going to accelerate, but they're now getting the 2023 cases.
Yep.
So just about that, do you know, the couple of questions I have on 2023. Obviously, my assumption is they're going to switch some number of the KCC staff to 2023 processing. That would be one assumption. My assumption also has been that the document procedure is back because the original December 9th announcement was very specific to 2022. DV 2022. So you don't happen to know anything about either of those points? Are they?
No, I didn't. I assumed that they were going to, because of the success. I just assumed
they like the pilot program, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. But I don't know.
Yeah. The way I read the December 9th announcement, they would actually have to announce no more documents, because all of the instructions still refer to documents, as they have done through all this time period since December 9th. They never changed any of it.
And I will say, right, if you're a KCC, you like the pilot program. It's less work.
Right.
Push it off to the consulates.
No, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It results in a higher level of no-shows and refusals, but like you say, push the work out, which makes perfect sense. And it's worked.
Okay. I mean this in the nicest way possible, but my sense is KCC, like, if you had oh man, I'm gonna really date myself, but how they have those robot workers from that they used to do in videos from like Pink Floyd, that are just walking. That's the KCC. They don't care. They're just punching, and then they respond to emails. They're just like, hey, this one, and it spits out. But getting personal, getting feelings, getting emotional, no.
It's not. No, exactly. It's never been that way. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay. Question here from Rahel: is there a possibility of an AV case going back to, going back to the previous status? The only way I could see that happening, perhaps you would have a view on this, Jesse, is if somebody asked to transfer to another embassy. But really, once you're in AV status, I've never heard of any case that's transferred out of one embassy to another when they're in that limbo status. AV being limbo.
I don't have data to say that has or hasn't happened. I would doubt it. I think the better, I guess maybe more surprising is if you are sitting in the queue in your AV and someone with a lower number becomes AV, they go to the front.
Yeah,
they go ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how it should be if what they're saying is true.
Correct.
But, you may have seen, I think it's Marek, who's been saying, I won't say his last name, but Marek has been saying that he's got actual evidence that they've been skipping some AV numbers, which makes no sense, right?
Yeah, and I've told our clients I think that would be one of the best arguments we have if we can prove that in our case, because the evidence and the regulations say that cannot happen, and if we can say that it is happening, that is a violation. And I think the person you're referring to, by the way, just got his 2-0.
Oh yeah,
yeah, cool. Earlier this week. Yeah, so
interesting, very good.
And I will say this: we have had people who had been technically, I think, or arguably skipped, who were quickly scheduled.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe like they maybe
it's a bucket.
Again, it's tough. It's tough to know.
Yeah.
There's certainly people.
They scheduled over 2,000 interviews in just like 3 days, and it's not that they. People crack me up in the forums in the channels because they're like, "Oh, KCC are sleeping today," and or on a busy day, it's like KCC are not sleeping. They've done all this work that day. And it's like, no, they probably did the work over a period of days, but they're releasing the results on one day, right? So, but people don't really understand that. So, whatever. But I'm thinking we'll certainly exceed 3,000 2NLs for July interviews, and perhaps 4,000. We could see the same again for August, but I think we'll see less in September. It's just the normal way they work. They tend to reserve the time in September for closing out AP cases and that sort of thing. So we'll see, but they are getting close to the 50,000, that's for sure. All right, so any other quick questions? You've got a few minutes left. Is there anything you wanted to go over?
I guess I have this pet theory that because one of the things that we are post-COVID, even though I know we're still kind of in it, but I think for many of us, or for many of the posts who have been asleep, the excuse has been we have to get through our backlogs. I've said at posts that are not, capacity constrained, but priority constrained, like a Cairo, we could see a big number in July and August. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I think you're probably right. If Cairo have shown a little bit of extra capacity just recently, so yes, if the capacity is this, and then it's this big, and then they add some cases, and Cairo says, yeah, we'll take 300 or 400, then yes, we would see a busy July and August. It would we would increase even more. In fact. That's partly why we got sort of 4,000, I think, for June, because Cairo did take a few. But of course, we get it in one place and it's taken away in another. Kathmandu slowed down, and there was another embassy that moved all of its interviews from 2 months, and they pushed everything back. Terrible.
Well,
look at this. We've got.
Oh, go ahead.
We got a listener from up high. God is watching and says he's saving us a spot. That's
well, yeah. Well, that must have been a big. I must have done something right, because the last time I went to church, I caught on fire. So my wife had to put me out. So I am a good Catholic boy, but no, I don't know. I'm just listen, man. Again, I think one of the things that really, I don't know, I've tried to take it and use it as a positive, is that this the pain that people feel every day in this system, man, is it. I really do think if I could change, immigration, the whole system in the United States is broken. DV is a great example of why and how it is so broken, because this system is probably in need of some really big changes, and it has nothing to do. Yes, raise the number, but the processing and the pain of processing is
it used to be good. All I can say is, pre 2018, it was good. The document procedure really screwed it up. The Trump administration screwed it up. COVID screwed it up. There are a number of things that cause some problems. But in general, it used to run very well, and it was very, very predictable. In the old days, I could say to someone, submit your DS-260 on this date and you'll get a March interview, or you get an April interview. It was literally like that. You could figure stuff out. Now it's completely ridiculous.
Well, and one of the
I hope 2023 is going to be better.
One of the things that gets frustrated and people don't understand on like transferring, they should let me transfer, and that is not just the Department of State. That involves foreign relations that are in delicate relationships between countries where the State Department does not want to be involved. So having someone from Cameroon go to Adiz, or someone in Adiz go to South Africa, the reason they have residency requirements is because they don't want to intrude and complicate things. They don't want to get involved in relationships that don't concern the United States.
Right, exactly. Because if people turn up at the inter-country border and they say, well, the U.S. Embassy sent me, the government of that country is going to say, well, screw the U.S. Embassy. Who the hell do they think? I mean, who are they?
So it's not as simple as saying they should allow me to transfer.
Right.
It's not they is more than the United States. They is your own country, the country you want to go to. It's not as easy as we make it out to be.
Right, exactly. Yep. Okay. All right. Anything else you want to cover? You got like 5 minutes left.
I guess, in our case, for people always want to know about the timeline. The government has moved to dismiss our case, and our discovery is the ability for both sides to kind of share what they have. So it's not a big surprise. It's not like, hey, gotcha. It's this is the evidence. Who's right? Who's wrong? Right. We are the first case that has actually gone through discovery for diversity visas, and it's been really informative for our clients. But we have to survive this motion to dismiss that the judge is going to rule on. We'll see. And then we'll probably have, if we can get away from that, we'll have a decision in August. The best case scenario for me would be that all of our plaintiffs are scheduled, and we don't have to force the judge to issue a decision. Because the thing about it is, and I try to tell my clients this, as much as I can tell them, we love our case, I got a good shot, judges can do what they want to do.
Right.
And we never want to, if we can avoid a judicial decision, let's do it. And that's why, going back to kind of, my Preston peeps, taking that SUVA option, man. they were like, what do you think? I'm like, I think if it were me, I'd call someone and make sure I got the SUVA. I mean, right.
Right.
But I have said, though, to the government, I'm like, listen, you know how expensive it is to go? Why don't, if you're going to do, Sue, if you're going to do this, like, you should let people go to where it's cost effective, man, Right. But of course, again, it goes back to like a theme of this whole chat today is we in the system have feelings and anxieties. The government does not. Right. They are stone cold. It's literally like putting a quarter in the machine and like that's it. Like they don't care that you have 15 derivatives. They don't care that this is your life stream. They just don't do it. And I don't mean that they're just totally insensitive. They do get it, but they get it as a collective.
Yeah. It's just broad numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not picking out Omar from, Alessandra. It's if we do 54, 850.
Yeah. job done. It doesn't matter.
And to be honest, and again, my clients will absolutely rip me to shreds on this. What we've seen since February is nothing. I would have lost my house betting that we would be in the situation where people are worried about the cap.
Yeah.
I mean, did you think they were going to turn on a dime like that?
No, absolutely not. No, I think I'm really interested. Actually, I guess there's probably a limit to what you can say because of the the gag orders or whatever. But we had a theory, you and I, or you had a theory. I think I agreed with it. That they were planning to issue 25,000. Right, that's what we thought around about February. I think we talked about that. Maybe 30,000. Right, and I think, joking apart, I think that was probably the plan. But they have certainly turned it around. And no, I didn't believe they were going to be as successful turning it around. And frankly, I'm very grateful that they did. I'm grateful that they were not stubborn enough to stay with that stupid document procedure thing. And that the other changes they've made, as you look back at it, now we know what they did. Smart changes. So no, I mean, we might all be pissed off with our buddy Miles, but whatever he and his team did has worked, right? So
I mean,
can't complain really. I mean, some people will complain, but
and perhaps the next surprise is that the visas that are left are really scheduled and issued in the spots that have not played the game, that have remained kind of dormant, and that maybe we can be surprised there. So like, I think I love when I get like a question like, is there hope? I'm like, well, I mean, for me, I mean, there's always hope. I mean, is the sun coming up tomorrow? If it's not,
there's hope until September 30th. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen extraordinary things. So, I mean, there's hope, but at the same time, blaming, if I'm not good, I'm not part of the story. You're not part of the story, right? And I think people need to appreciate that. Just like, everyone wants to blame, you got to blame the system in some ways, and you can't really finger point. And I think people also need to take a deep breath. And I've seen some anger and all that other stuff. There's just no need for that. Okay. Right. There's no need for that, because there's, as much as the diversity visa lottery is important, and it is, listen, everyone's got a long life ahead of them, that they need to just take a deep breath, because if you're that angry over this, maybe you don't belong getting a visa, because life in the United States is hard. It's hard where you are, but it's hard everywhere, and life is hard. That's
No, I agree with you. What's that?
I was just going to tell you, they have those T-shirts where it says, and I love this story. It says, they say life is good. They don't say life is perfect or life is easy. It's just good, right?
Right.
It's bad sometimes. It's just good, right? Like every day, like something bad is gonna, And I think that, and again, I don't mean to minimize the pain, but there are people who've been selected and who have not gotten a visa, and they've survived.
Yeah. And people will survive. Absolutely. I mean, listen, Jesse, I totally get you. I agree with where you're coming from. I think we also need to sort of keep in the back of our minds that you and I have had very privileged upbringings, right? Very privileged position today. We're both sitting very comfortably, and there are lots of people around the world who are not comfortable. They're not even safe, right? And so when they get a life-changing opportunity, and for everybody, I mean, I've been through it. I was a DV, derivative, right? So, but I was brought up in the UK. I'd have been just fine, I was fine in the UK. I was fine in Europe. I worked in the USA. I had an H1 visa. I was in no problems really, comparatively.
Yeah.
But yeah, for some people, this is a very big deal, and you can understand why.
Oh, so, absolutely. And I think I don't want to say like, oh, I understand them. I always tell people I can't possibly understand, right? But at the same time, and I've told people this all the time, especially people who retain me to work for them. If I lose my head, you should pay someone else. I have to be that silver bullet, stone cold. Right. I just have a target, right?
Yeah.
If I start mixing in feelings and getting wishy-washy, I mean, as much as I can do that on the side, and I have done that when I've had the opportunity to speak with people, I will say, let me just tell you a story about, OC21 and what they're doing. Okay. Because they got 5 derivatives and you just turn them off. Right. Or I can tell people like, hey, do you understand what the impact Cairo is having on people? I get to do that. But when you pay me, you're not paying me to jump up and down and scream, because that's not effective lawyering as far as I can tell.
No, you're right.
So I don't mean to minimize it. I just mean, like, when I do my job is to be that stone cold killer in court. And I mean, not killer, but like just to drive it, like, so
it's not that you don't care. It's just that it's better for you to stay unemotional sometimes in this. So, and I
do think, though, that the United States can do a better job. I mean, one of the things living in the immigration game for so long is, when I've had a chance to weigh in on reform, and we can do a better job and open the door for students and talented individuals to get those visas that are outside. I mean, what a lot of people don't understand is there are other visas available. And they should go for it, employer-sponsored, family-based, self-sponsored.
Yeah, I was going to do a video for that. I mean, for a lot of people, that's a possibility, but there are a lot of people who literally can't qualify for any other visa type.
I know.
They don't have the education, or they wouldn't be able to get the job opportunity. They don't have families. They can't come that way. They couldn't come through asylum because they couldn't really prove a well-founded fear. It literally go through all of the ways they could come, and they don't qualify for any of them. There are people that are in that position.
Yeah. But again, it's we also have people in the United States who think that immigrants are the reason that we don't have baby formula. So I mean, exactly. Yeah, we're not perfect.
Oh gosh, no.
we can all. We're trying. Again, we got a long way to go before. That's why life is good. It's not great.
Yeah. You drive down to Mexico and go into the Costco's in Mexico, and it's stacked to the rafters with baby formula.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anyway. We just gotta. Yeah, but you know what? You deserve a lot of credit, and again, I really do think that people don't give you the appreciation they do, because I have clients. Your clients are millions across the world who are just looking for answers. So I just want to say thank you again. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm going to stay on for a few minutes and answer some of these non-Jesse questions.
Oh, good. But, I got to go.
Because I know you got to shoot. But I appreciate you taking the
time. My son is pitching tonight, and I got to.
Awesome. My daughter's got the championship game tonight of softball. There, they battled their way through. So but that's in a few hours' time.
Yeah, well, be
so
good.
Good luck with that.
Well, listen, he's a tough kid. I mean, luckily he's more athletic than his father. So I'll see you later. Okay.
All right, Jesse.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to blast through some of these questions that I've seen, and try and answer some of these things. So apologies that Jesse and I didn't get to answer many questions, but I'll answer some of these. Right. All Solution Channel. If I have a kid, played with him. Okay. What if I have a kid? I played with him, included in family play at the age of 20, and now the results are out and he's 21. Is there any problem in that? Yes, there is. There is a thing called the CSPA, Child Status Protection Act, that freezes the age of your child for a few months. Okay. Now, the calculation is a little bit difficult. I mean, you've basically got to add about 6 or 7 months, but it will depend on when your child's birthday is and your case number. If your case number becomes current before your child is something like 21 years and 6 months, roughly, there's a precise number that's different each year. But if your case becomes current, then you can proceed. If the case does not become current before he's reached that sort of added age, 21 years and a few months, then no, your child won't get the visa. If the child doesn't get the visa for that reason, is his aged out, it takes a long time to sponsor a child who's over 21. So you'll need to consider that. But what I suggest you do is go to my blog, and in the search area, put in there child turning 21. So I think that I've got an article that fully explains it there. 2017 winner here just filed for citizenship. Oh, fantastic. I just did that earlier this year. The group was a great resource during the DV time, waiting for the green card. Good luck to everyone. Be patient, read all the past questions. Good point. As most of them have already been answered in the past. Absolutely right. If people just go through the previously answered questions. That, by the way, is why I prefer to answer questions in public rather than private message. So I get loads of private messages every day on Telegram, on email, and I ignore all of them because I just don't have enough time, and I would much rather the questions are asked in public so that they can help more than one person. When will we find out whether the document procedure is continuing or not for DV 2023? Great question. We'll find out in a few weeks' time. We'll find out one way in a few weeks' time. Roughly in, I'm expecting in June, perhaps July, that if the document procedure is reinstated, we will start to see letters coming out to people saying, please send in your documents. There's a specific format of the letter. And that's how we will know, right? Now, we could find out in the meantime, because the government says, hey, the pilot program worked so well, we're now continuing that into DV 2023. But we need one or the other of those things to happen. We either start getting the request for documents, and then we'll know, or we'll see something that says the pilot program is now the de facto program moving forward. That's going to be the change. And I honestly don't know which way it'll go. I saw someone else who said, that their documentation said you don't have to send in documents or something. Forget that. It's always said that. It said that before the documents procedure. It said that during the document procedure. Forget all that. It doesn't matter what they say. It's what they do that counts. It's not a matter of what they say. And it doesn't matter what it says in the DS-260 confirmation, particularly because that form is used by all immigrant cases, not just DV cases. And DV is only 5% of the overall cases. So just ignore all those things. Don't bring that to me and say, oh, this is proof. It's not proof. I mistakenly put on my DS-260 that I didn't travel anywhere in the last 5 years. When I checked out my old unexpired passport, you travel to Turkey on vacation, will it affect your chances? If you're DV 2023, I would say unlock and correct that. If you're 2022, you probably can't unlock at this point, and you probably shouldn't. And so you're going to have to just go to the interview and see what happens. Okay, it can appear when you do things like that, it can appear like, what are you hiding? You know, why are you trying to hide that travel history? So you've got to be careful with that. You made a mistake with foreign state chargeability. Please, you said we should hold on submitting the DS-260, so I'm patient waiting for you, please. You have to. So, I answer about 200 questions a day from people. I can't remember everybody that's asked me a question. So you made a mistake. You're gonna have to tell me again what exactly is your situation. What country were you born in? What country did you choose? What was the justification for choosing that other country? Are they in two different regions? You know, I can't remember exactly the details of your case. Okay. What about a DUI in the past? Is it a problem for the green card? Great question. Okay, there are the general rule on crimes and criminal activity, etc., is a thing called a crime of moral turpitude, CMT or CIMT, I think, crime involving moral turpitude. And so, essentially, when they ask you a police report, they get some crime information off there. If you've been convicted of something like a bank robbery, they would see that on your police report, right? But with DUI, in some cases, that can represent a problem. There is a standard. So, for example, if I cheat at I don't know, if I cheat at cards, and the police are involved in some reason, that's not really a very serious crime, and it's not a crime of moral turpitude. On the other hand, if I cheat on, if I rob a bank, if I break some law in some country with regard to their immigration laws, that can be a crime of moral turpitude. And DUI is one of the crimes that can be a crime of moral turpitude. So in other words, yes, it can affect the issuance. It can cause a denial. What will make the difference is how long ago that was, and perhaps some information about that case, right? They might even ask for information about that case. Depends how serious the DUI was. If, for example, you were drunk and, God forbid, you actually hit someone and killed them, then yeah, that's you're done. You're not going to get a green card. They're not going to allow you to come to the States with that sort of history. Okay. How I know, holes. Right, we won't know until we have all the data whether how many holes there are. So basically, what's going to happen is probably in July we're going to see the selectee numbers for each of the countries. It could come as early as June in the visa bulletin that's published in June, which is the July visa bulletin. It's stupid the way they name it, but anyway, that's what it's called. But in last year, it was published in the August visa bulletin, which is published in July. So I'm expecting that the visa bulletin published in July will have the selectee numbers per country. That's one piece of data we need. It tells us how many selectees there are in each of the countries. And I'm hearing some really wacky high numbers for DV 2023, like Nepal 27,000 was reported to me on YouTube this morning. I can't quite believe that, can't get my head around that, but let's say it's possible. That either means that there's a lot more selectees this year than in a normal year, or that there's a lot more holes than a normal year. Now, holes is not something that we're going to be able to absolutely pinpoint until we get the SEAC data, which will be in January of next year. So we won't know for sure, but what we will know in July is we'll know the number of selectees. That will tell us whether it's an oversubscribed year or how oversubscribed. And by then we'll have sort of formed some guesses about the highest case number in each region. And from there, we can sort of get a view of what we think is going to be the case. But it won't be precise until January when we get the SEAC data. Okay. Okay. When you're asking questions, please give me your year and your year and your case number. Right. Without that, I can't answer these questions too well. So you're asking, should you reopen your DS-260 because you didn't do the travel history correctly? If you're DV 2023, yes, unlock and correct it. You should have an accurate form, but you have to see. You have to see that. This is an interesting comment. Most Jews are liberal and support LGBT. Okay, I'm not quite sure why you're saying that, Ban Jason 322. I'm not quite sure why that is, but anyway, thanks for that comment. All right, from Nigar. My parents have been selected for DV 2022. They still haven't been called for an interview. They are from Iran, waiting to be called in Ankara. What options do they have to trace their status? All they can do is contact KCC. If you haven't been scheduled yet, the embassy don't know anything about you. But the reality is probably half the people that want to proceed this year are not going to get interviews. They're not going to get their green cards because they over-selected. Then they made everyone, or almost everyone, current, and there's just not enough. There's just not enough visas to go around. That's the reality. There's also not enough time. So unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not going to work out. And since you're from Iran, Nigar, you should also know that Iranians typically get, particularly males, typically get long periods of administrative processing after the interview. So there's high risk for anybody from Iran that goes for an interview from now that they won't close AP in time. So, if you get AP and you're from Iran, it's going to take a while. Okay. What are the AOS success rates for DV lottery? Very high. My own case was processed through adjustment of status. Most cases go through that process perfectly well. The rules are the same, but there are some advantages to adjustment of status. There's slightly less documentation you have to provide, and even though adjustment of status for other visa types takes 10, 15 months, for DV cases, they tend to rush that through. They're aware of the September 30th deadline, and they tend to rush those cases through. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good option. Like I said, I did it. Okay, my wife went DV 2023, but I lived in the US with a pending asylum status. How will she answer? Right, so she's not in the US. You lived in the US and you were pending asylum. How should she answer? She should be perfectly honest. Absolutely, the worst thing that she should do or could do is just try and pretend that you're in some other status, or that, she should just be very honest about the situation. And you can process your case, but if she's the winner, you're probably going to be better off to go back to your home country or a third country to process your case. It's a bit complicated. I suggest, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, ask me a question on my blog, britsimonsays.com, and I'll answer it there. Any chance of a second draw? I just produced a video about that a few days ago. We won't know until we know how many selectees. If they've already selected more than 100,000 people, then there is no second draw. If they've only selected 80,000 people or so, then there's a chance of a second draw. But from the case numbers I'm hearing, I don't think they've under-selected this year. I'm hearing some very high case numbers. So I believe they've probably over-selected quite a lot, probably more than DV 2022, which means there would be no second draw. Doctor with a master's degree here, AF 2023. I made a mistake in the GS260. It's amazing how many master's degree educated people make mistakes. What the hell is wrong with you? Focus. You went through all this training to get a master's degree. Come on, you can fill in a form. You made the mistake regarding the date you were awarded with your high school diploma. Would it be a problem? No, it probably wouldn't. Don't overthink that. Don't worry about that too much. This is another interest. So, Ban Jason, it's another question from you. When will the Brits stop suing euros? I think you mean using euros. When will the Brits? We don't use euros in Britain. What's the point of Brexit? Oh, an American, by the way. No, you're kind of confused. Britons are not using euros. Never did. When they went into the common market, they kept the pound, and it was a massive advantage for the Brits, because they had their own banking system, they had the ability to set their own monetary policy, etc. It was a massive advantage. It was really a golden ticket. And then some morons got in charge and did the Brexit thing. Why they did that, I don't know. They're morons. What can I say? This whole nationalistic pride bullshit, the same thing as Trump, basically. And they wanted straight cucumbers or bent cucumbers or something. I don't know. They were just idiots. And so now, unfortunately, England has to continue with that idiocy. But they never did use euros in Britain. Is there any problem if my passport date expiring August 2022, entered and submitted, your case number is 2023? No problem. No problem. You'll simply renew it, and when your case is ready for interview, you'll have a new visa. Your case number AF 62,000 though, you're going to wait so long. It's going to be a year from now, so you'll have a new passport before then. You can enter your DS260 now with the valid passport, and you can modify that later, the DS260, or just arrive at the interview with a new passport and proof of the old passport. Okay. Yes, using. Yeah. Okay. From Germany, do I also need a police certificate for the USA if I live there for you? No. Please do read the instructions. If you had read the instructions, it says there very clearly no police certificates are needed for the USA. The reason for that is because the government have access to all of the criminal records for any place. So no problem. You don't need to provide a police certificate. They already have that information. Okay, quick. Highest number I've seen for AF region. Again, please say the years. But for Africa 2023, I'm hearing numbers above 70,000, which is higher than last year. But case numbers for OC region, for example, over 3,000. For Nepal, I was hearing 19 and 20,000, which is nuts. And I heard 27,000 today. I mean, I'm hearing some high case numbers. Europe, I think I've heard 35,000. So, it really is, pretty high. Okay. Traveled all problem solution channel. Traveled to Thailand around 2008, 2010. Now the DV lottery, you need a police clearance. Yes. If somebody made above 6 months, must they go back to Thailand to get it? No, you don't need to go back to Thailand to get it. I think you're saying if the police certificate is over 6 months old at this point. Number one, police certificates are valid for up to 2 years as far as the American government is concerned, even if the issuing country says they're only valid for 3 months or 6 months. The US immigration process accepts them up to 2 years old. Secondly, they accept police certificates that are older than that, where you haven't been back to the country. So you left Thailand in 2010. If you had a 5-year-old police certificate, but you could show that you've not been back to Thailand, and you have to be able to show that or convince the CO of that, then that old police certificate would still be valid. So no, you don't need to worry. You've been selected, but your wife has no passport and national ID, but she only has birth certificate. You need something. You need to be able to submit the DS-260. You need either a passport or a national ID. You can't. There isn't an ID on the birth certificate, right? So no, you need something. Go ahead and get the passport. You'll need it for the interview process anyway. Okay. Do I think AF 15,000 is a good number for 2023? Yeah, that's a good number in any year. So it's almost a pointless question, frankly. Does the main applicant only need to supply proof of financial savings at the interview? If so, what proof can you show? Tax returns. Okay. The principal applicant is responsible for the finances and proving that they're not going to become a public charge for the whole of their family. And so the best way to prove that is an I-134, which is where a US resident or citizen fills out a form, an I-134, which is available online, saying that they agree to sort of sponsor you, provide some financial assistance, etc. That's the best, simplest way, because it's very easy to determine whether or not that's going to be accepted or not. There's a formula that compares the income of the sponsor to the poverty guidelines. But you could also show your own income, right? And savings rather. If you've saved up, 100 grand sitting in your bank account, then you're probably not going to have to show an I-134. Roughly speaking, I tell people to show around about $10,000, $10,000 to $15,000 per person, right? If you're going to show savings. If you're just going to show income, if you've got no savings and you're just going to show income of a job that you're going to quit to leave to America, that's useless, right? The point is, how much money have you saved? And if you don't have any savings, then get an I-134 from a third party, from somebody else, someone you know, preferably. Again, another question there without telling me the year, but roughly speaking, the quota for Asia region is about 8,500 visas. Just want to say thank you. Permanent residence since January, moving down in August after getting my degree. Already started getting interviews. That's awesome, Jack. Thank you for letting me know. It makes me very happy to hear about people that are making it through the program successfully. If somebody has the residence in a country with an embassy, which embassy in it? Are they prioritized over those? No, I don't think they are. And according to what Jesse was saying earlier, no, they're not. They're not prioritized over non-locals. They shouldn't be, right? They shouldn't be. DV is politics now. Politics affects DV, yes. DV isn't politics as such, but it's kind of a dopey process, as Jesse was alluding to earlier. It's not personal. America takes all Ukraine now, says Wing Loon. Wing Loon, yeah. Not all of Ukraine, no. I don't know where you get this stuff from. The people that get most worked up about politics usually don't know diddly squat about politics. And you're, another example of that. You say we're taking all of Ukraine. No, we've opened our arms allegedly to 100,000, and we've made some accommodations for the 4 million people that are displaced by that piece of shit Putin next door, and that seems fair enough to me. And frankly, we should be the same way with other countries which are suffering terribly from localized wars and persecution. And we don't do enough of that. But I can tell, Wing, that you don't really have a clue what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, in our country, getting ID takes around 4 to 5 months. Be too late to feel in DS260. Well, do what you can. Do what you can. Just, if you've got something else that you think has got a numeric ID on it, then use that. Okay. Can the I-134 be arranged by a non-profit? You mean like a church or something like that? No, it can't. It has to be. A person. Here we go. This is Wing Loon again. Wing Loon Long or whatever. Until the USA citizens are suffering. Oh, shut up. Just shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why I'm talking to you. Anyway, here we go. I'm from Ukraine. DB 2022. Apparently, Wing is worried that you're going to come here and make me suffer because I'm an American. DS, you're currently at Frankfurt Embassy. DS was sent 7921. Still at KCC. What would you recommend me? I'm losing any hope. Yeah. All you can do is contact KCC. You may find your case changes immediately, not just by asking, but it could happen overnight, right? But anyway, ask KCC what the position is, and hopefully something will happen. But there's no sort of magic bullet. I can't tell you a magic secret. I'm sorry about that, but anyway. And if you bump into that, in that case, Wing, give him my regards. What's the probability of issuing 54,000 visas by September for DV 2022? It's very difficult to get that close to the cap. So we're probably not going to see 54,000, but we'll probably see 45 to 50,000. So, it's possible. We'll have to see. I mean, they're doing very well. They're doing everything that they would need to do to get as close as they can. Accra. Yeah, Accra is just a pain in the ass. They're on my shit list, obviously, and I don't think they're going to fall in line. I don't think they're going to give a happy ending to a lot of people. So I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Is it submit date or case number? It is never, ever, 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 ever been submit date. Submit date gives you, an earlier submission gives you an advantage, but it doesn't hold your place in line or anything like that. Case number is what's always been important, always has been, okay, and still is. Do we have any second chance of DV lottery from Sri Lanka? Somebody asked me earlier whether there's going to be a second draw. Basically, no, there probably isn't going to be a second draw for DV 2023, but it's too early to be 100% certain. You do have, in Sri Lanka, you do have a YouTuber called Pasan Nivas or something. You could ask her, but she's got no freaking idea about DV lottery. So whatever she says is probably going to be wrong, right? So by all means, ask her. When I applied for DV 2023, I put the wrong expiration date for your passport. I won, but I'm now worried it will affect me. No, it won't. You probably did that because you probably knew what you're doing, right? But no, the passport rule was blocked, so it won't affect you. Is getting AP on the 30th of September indicates not getting the visa? Yeah, absolutely. If you went to interview on the 30th of September, you have to be issued that day. Or if you're being put into AP because you didn't have some document, then you're done. It's over with. Any case that is still in an AP status as of midnight on the 30th of September, they're done. They can't be issued. Why I moved from the UK? My wife is Spanish and hated the weather in the UK. That's basically it. Long story short, I'd worked in America for many years. I was comfortable here. Actually, maybe I'm using that mic. I don't know. So yeah, I was in America for many years, and I was pretty comfortable in America. But I came back and forth. I was actually commuting for a lot of years from 2005 to 2010. I was on a plane every 2 weeks from the UK to the USA. And then 2 weeks later, I was back on a plane back to the UK, and like that for 5 years. So I could have worked anywhere. I could have lived anywhere. But fundamentally, my wife preferred the weather in the USA. So there you go. Okay. Just take one or two more questions here if I can just see anything else. Yeah, so somebody here is asking, for 2023, you submitted your DS260. How soon will you receive feedback? We don't know. You just have to be patient. This process is all about patience, right? Depending on your case number, they will probably take longer to process your case. And so you just have to be a bit patient. But every time you ask me a question, you need to give me a case number, because if you've got a very low case number, then you may find that they get back to you sooner than other cases, right? How many applicants do they select from one county? I think you mean country. Within the region, within a region, like within Africa or within Asia, everybody within that region is supposed to have the same chance of selection. So if you see a country that has 1,000 selectees and you see the country next door has 100 selectees, it simply means that the country with more selectees had more entries. That's all it means, right? It's not like there's a cap on any country or any preference for any country. There are a few countries that are held back during the process, and so those countries actually have less chance of winning. And those countries are countries like Iran, Nepal, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, what else? Egypt. There are Ethiopia. There are various Ghana. There are various countries that are held back during the draw. So all of those countries that are held back actually have less chance than every other country in that region. But generally speaking, the draw is a lottery that operates within the regions, and so therefore you're supposed to have the same chance. Does that make sense? Okay. Will there be a passport requirement to enter the DV 2024? Apparently, a federal judge dropped the. Yeah, so the passport rule was blocked in February of this year. Yes, it was blocked by a federal judge. And basically, the reason for that was that the government didn't introduce the rule with the right amount of notice period and public consultation that they should have done. So it was a technicality that caused the judge to say, well, you didn't implement it correctly, therefore you can't use that rule. Now, in order to re-implement that rule, which is the prerogative of the government, they would have to be actually starting to inform people about that intention pretty soon, like in the next few weeks, right? And if they don't do that, then they won't be able to use it in 2024. But right now, it's too early to know what the government are going to do, right? Whether they're going to do that or not. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Okay. Okay, this will be the last question, I think. How fair is the DV lottery in terms of picking up candidates? I think it's more biased towards families from rural areas rather than individuals. No, what you think is nonsense. Why would you think it's more biased towards families from rural areas? That's just silly. No, it's completely random. It's just a random selection, right? They get the number of entries, they all go in a hat kind of thing, and basically they're all ordered by a computer. And it's a totally random process. It has nothing to do with whether you've got derivatives or not, whether you're single or not. It certainly has nothing to do with whether you're from a rural area. That is completely nonsense. It also has nothing to do with the education level you put on the form or anything like that. It's nothing to do with any of that. It's random. That's how fair it is. Okay. All right, everybody. I better call that a day. I'm sorry that this has been long, but hopefully I've answered some of the questions that you wanted to get answered. And I'll see you again in a few days' time, but please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.